I am Professor Enid Bozic, and I'm very excited to be here today. I came upon this material because Dr. Sandy Morgan, when I was a doctoral student, introduced me to the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, and through my contact, one of my assignments was to interview a legal leader, and the senior legal counsel there was able to give me feedback of what she does, but as she spoke about story after story of the cases that she's involved in, it really broke my heart, and I felt that I needed to do something more than just the interview. And so part of my social media class that I teach here, I have a segment on the ethical implications on social media and how that affects children, because I really want our college students to understand that they have a part to play, and in order to play a part, they need to be aware, right? So anyways, that's a little bit about the backstory. If we could go to my slides, I don't know if you have them. Okay, so the first point of figuring out what you can actually do, even if you're a parent, a social worker, a youth worker, a board member, if you're an educator, anyone who's involved in the K through 12 education system, the number one thing is that you are here, and this is a great first step, is just becoming aware, becoming educated, and then knowing how to take action. All right, so the title of my mini presentation is called How Can We Do Our Part to Safeguard K through 12 Students Against Online Predators? And I wanted to say that if you can go to the Earn It Act, one of the things I learned from NCOSI is that I spoke with the head policymaker there, and she taught me about the Earn It Act. And what the Earn It Act is it's the eliminating abusive and rampant neglect of interactive technologies. That's what it stands for. It was introduced in 2022. It didn't really get much tracking. They thought it might be buried, but then it was revived again in 2023, and this is amazing news. It is a bipartisan bill, so on the policy side, this is something that we definitely need. And what's happening right now, although you can ask to have images removed, not all tech companies and platforms will remove those images. And sometimes you can file a lawsuit and it takes a long time to get those images off, which is why this act is very, very important. It's going to remove this sort of blanket immunity that tech companies currently fall upon. It's from the Communication Decency Act and Section 230 in 1996. When they passed this act, they had no idea that CSAM would be the type of materials that would be out there. And so what this act is going to do, if you go to the next slide, is to really amend that act and say that tech companies really need to be held responsible. They no longer should have that blanket immunity. Because if there are CSAM images going on in these social media spaces, on these online gaming platforms, there's got to be a way to remove those images without having to go to court, right? So we want to amend that, and we want tech companies to have basic accountability. And I don't know if you saw on January 31st, Facebook had to go before the Senate. Yep, you saw the images. It's very heartbreaking. And so, you know, we're starting to see more folks that are standing up and asking platforms to take a stand. So another thing the Earn It Act does, it's going to establish a national commission, right, to form best practices of how to move forward and how to be responsible in these spaces. Next slide. Sorry, I have to go through these really quickly. It's also going to provide, right, that civil recourse that is very difficult to do at this time. So for example, there was the John Doe's versus Twitter case where there were two 13-year-old boys that were sextorted. They refused. The images were circulated on Twitter hundreds and thousands of times. They were not removed. Twitter knowingly knew those images were on their platform, but refused to remove those images because they claimed blanket immunity. And therefore, the case was actually dismissed this past May in 2023, unfortunately. However, NCOSY is not going to stop the fight. We're going to continue the fight, and we're going to continue until we see this stopped, right? Next slide. So the great news about the Earn It Act, not only is it a bipartisan bill, but it is also supported by more than 150 groups, survivors, and organizations that are out there that are saying this can no longer be the case. So NCMBC, which was here, and COSY, which I talked about, International Justice Mission, another good organization is Protect Young Eyes. They have great material on how to stay on top of what's happening in the social media space and the gaming world. They're excellent choices, the National District Attorneys Association, and of course the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which is RAIN. Let's see, so what can these policies, oh wait, there are these other acts, yes, I don't have time to talk about these. However, these are other acts that are in play, the Project Save Child Act, the Kids Online Safety Act, which is COSA, please look into these acts, Default to Safety Act, and the Stop CSAM Act, which is a great tool to close that gap in the law to crack down on the proliferation of the CSAM material. So look into these policies, these are excellent as well. Next slide. So what can these policies actually do? So first of all, they're going to, because tech companies see children as just collateral damage because they're pursuing innovation, they simply don't care. They are complicit, they know this is happening, yet they're doing nothing about it. And so we should be outraged. I'm sure you're already outraged from what you've heard so far, but we must turn that outrage into action. And so these common sense child safety processes and these policies really need to be implemented to combat that CSAM and other forms of predatory material that's out there. Next slide. So there was this recent survey in 2023 by RAIN, and they had 1,000 participants of parents and caregivers just to get an understanding of, are people aware? What do they want to see? Because oftentimes parents are blamed and told that this is something you have to put parental controls on your devices, you need to speak with your children, you need to make sure that you're doing X, Y, and Z, but no, this is not just a parental issue. This is all of society involved. And so some of the percentages that came out from this survey was that 82% felt tech and social media companies should combat viewing, creating CSAM, and they feel policymakers, 85% feel that policymakers and elected officials should stop the spread of CSAM. 70% believe parental control should be included in options for those under the age of 18, and then 65% believe CSAM should be removed within 24 hours of being reported. Okay, so that's on the parent side. And then what can school board members, administrators, educators, social workers, youth workers do? Number one, be vocal. Be very vocal. Understand what policies are out there. Understand what's happening in California. Understand what's happening locally. To make a change, it starts with local legislation. And so you want to talk, you want to be vocal, you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can. And what's great about following NCOSY, for example, if you follow their newsletter and you tell them where you're located, they will send you emails where you can sign documentation, petitions to your legislator to ask them to vote on these policies as they arise, which is an amazing thing. Be very aware of what's existing in your online child safety laws. One good one is the Protecting Children in the 21st Century Act, and that requires all schools and libraries to have online safety. They have to monitor internet usage, they have to have filters, and they need to report violations. If you have a school that isn't utilizing this act, then be a voice for that, all right? Next slide. Also, you want to increase your digital intelligence rate in this space. And internet safety plays a big role in that. So as the previous speaker said, we need curriculum, we need quizzes. They did a great job offering these free resources, so make sure that you take advantage of those resources and speak with your school administrators to bring those resources and help with the training and the curriculum that is there. You know, you can even go to your, the current teachers that you have over your children, and you can have a conversation with them, and they're more likely to respond and say, wow, I didn't know about this. We definitely need to implement this at the school. You'd be surprised how many people really are unaware of what's actually happening in that space. And it also helps the school to partner with parents in combating these CSAM images, all right? Next slide. And then you want to work with local legislators, as I said, really be a voice with tech companies, put pressure on them to make those changes, and work with law enforcement agencies. Another thing that school board members and administrators can do is they can implement training, maybe semi-annually, regarding CSAM prevention, and of course talking about the trend today, which is AI. You know, what they can do with children and images through AI is abhorrent. We need to put a stop to that. We need policies that specifically address that, because that is going to become an increased issue across our nation and across the world. Next slide. Also, we should organize student assemblies. So that's pretty easy to do. Just talking about these web-based dangers, any online training and workshops that can happen, just really speaking about and getting awareness that way. And then last slide. So yeah, I ran out of time, but if you would like a free guide, we are working on it, my colleague and I. The presentation I gave on safeguarding K-12 students against online predators, I have the poster in the back, please take a look. I also have resources and references out there that will help you in your pursuit of knowledge and building awareness. All right, thank you so much.